I mean, it's a long process, man, and because it's like that's like asking a person. You're asking it through the business prism, but the reality is that you're asking me how I've changed personally over 10 years. I mean,
yeah,
between 25 and 35, I think there's probably common experience in the sense that I felt like my 20s were just concentrated entirely on work. So, because I started Frank's when I was 20, right? Yeah. And then I started this when I was 25. That's really young. And I was proper like nose to the grindstone. Like when I started Frank's, I was working full time at the Anchor and Hope and Frank's. So I did like 45, 48 hours a week at the Anchor. They kindly grouped all my doubles together so I could do like Monday to Thursday doubles. And then I would do Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Frank's because we were only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I literally worked 7 days a week, right? And I'm not advocating for that at all. In fact, quite the opposite. But at that time, I had no other strategy for getting through that part of my life. That was the only way I could approach it because I was like, if I'm actually going to like make anything happen here, I have to put myself into this fully without any thought towards my well-being or anything like that. It's crazy to think now, but I was sufficiently young and pliable to like get away with it a little bit. Like you can just about get by doing like 100-hour weeks and not sleeping that much, you know, at that age. Not that you should, but you can. When you're 30, yeah, when you're 30, you can't. Right? Yeah. So like in terms of how it's changed, I think my attitude to work has become less self-sacrificial. That's one thing. I feel totally confident as a person in who I am, where before I felt defined by my work. That's another thing.
I mean, I'm asking you all these things selfishly, right? So
yeah.
because I've hit 30.
Right.
Same thing when I did this left comfort of peanut butter business.
Right.
When I was like moved home with my parents, I was like, I'm going in. Like
right.
I'm just gonna fucking send it and make this thing a full-time thing. Now I hit 30 and not that because I think you talked somewhere about like anxiety hallucinations at some point in your like I've definitely had experiences of that where it's like, and you know, I'm still trying to sort of pinpoint what the fuck it is. Is it just working too much? I think when it's your passion, it become very muddled area because you're like you love it so much but then you're like, mate, if you actually step back, you're working so much.
Yeah, but the point is that you're more than your work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm struggling to kind of. I think what you said there. There's two prisms to look through. The business and personal. Goes. You are defining your personal by your business prism.
Yeah.
I 100% relate to that.
Because it's actually not enough. I think that's the point, is that like a business is great and you can throw loads at it, but it's not life.
It may, 100%.
And that's a massively important distinction because the fact is there's this classic like aphorism, you know, like we work to live as opposed to living to work, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the fact is, the balance there skews because quite often it can feel like you are just working, you're living to work. If you get trapped in that cycle of ambition where you're like, I need to give everything to this in order for it to go forward, there may be some truth in that, but I think it's not about the hours. It's actually more to do with how much you concentrate on it and how much you're able to focus on it. And I'm saying that from a position of someone who's like given everything to the point of burnout and now feels like it's not the only way to achieve the same end result. In fact, I would advocate for a different approach in order to create a better business.
So talk to me about the anxiety and like let's go here because I just think
100%.
I think like one, it's helping me, but I know it'll help loads of people who listen to this. But if you could describe almost like maybe a song that would describe like the way your brain was thinking, or like
well, this is the thing. So we could maybe cut this bit out, but because I think the easiest comparison is actually if you take psychedelics,
right?
But like because the experience of being trapped in a thought loop that you can't escape from is like terrifying and maddening, and that can happen if you have a bad experience with psychedelics.
Yeah,
but. I will try to think of a song, but yeah, I think...
No, we can go with that. And I think So then you wake up, like, what are the first, in this period of time?
So can I just give you some context first? Because I think it's important, because I feel like otherwise we just drop into the apex of it, and actually there was a build up to it, and that's significant.
Yeah.
So I think that so what we're talking about here is something that I've been open talking about, which is that I had a breakdown in 2020, right? Pre-COVID, and which is weird because I think a lot of people had a breakdown during or just at the beginning of COVID, and mine happened separately to it, really. It was completely irrespective of that. And then COVID happened, and it kind of compounded it in some ways, but also made it easier because the business changed and I wasn't dealing with that. But also, if I'd been here, I don't know how I would have dealt with it, right? Yeah. So, but in 2019, I lost 80% of my chefs at the beginning of the year. Coincidentally, like a group of people who had been here for a long time all kind of handed in their notice with different lengths of time. And the only solution at that point was for me to come back into the fold. And I had been trying to step away from it unsuccessfully to give myself a little bit more breathing room. And what that actually looked like was just working every day, doubles, but like I said to you before, it's not quite as easy to do that when you're 30 or over 30. Like, your body, for one, isn't the same, and your mind certainly isn't the same. And I started to kind of degrade mentally at that point. Then I managed to hire an amazing head chef called Sam and a sous chef called Ben, who are both lovely people, and they kind of took it on. And what it feels like in my head is that the relief of having these guys who are able to do the job that I had wanted to give up for quite a while was so palpable that my brain sort of imploded. And what happened was, very gradually towards the end of the year, I started to get physically unwell. Various other, for example, I've got gout, which is a sort of comedic thing for a lot of people, but I had, that's partly to do with family history and partly to do with a life of excess, right? But also, it's to do with the stress building up in my body, triggering something that shouldn't really have happened to me for another 10 or 20 years, right? And then I had a long-standing sickness, a sort of flu-style thing that I literally couldn't shake for 8 or 9 weeks, regularly spiking with fever. And I was working at this point, doing shifts in the kitchen, trying to support the team. So it was all kind of building. And this is after 2019... what's that, 5 years ago? So yes, we're talking about 12 years into the industry at this point. The pub is 5 and kind of doing okay, but not out of the woods yet. And it just all kind of built after that long of being an owner operator, a head chef and a director. It was just too much and my brain couldn't take it. And what happened was that over the Christmas period, my anxiety started to build about opening Frank's the following year. And I had in my mind, I had created a new system of operating for Frank's that I wanted to launch the following year, because I was this is going to revolutionize the way we do it, blah, blah, blah. And what happened was that I started, basically at the beginning of January, I started having stress dreams in the daytime, which I've described as anxiety, hallucinations, if you like. But the reason for that is that that's how it felt to me at the time. I was awake. It was during the day, and I was trapped in a visual loop of doing mise en place out of that kitchen here with a chef from Frank's who I was going to hire, and we were just looping over these processes, and I was but this is wrong, this isn't the way to do it. It's when you have a stressful dream that you can't get out of, right? But it was completely terrifying because I thought that I was going mad. I literally thought that I wouldn't be able to communicate with a human again. So I just, in my mind, I was becoming a lunatic. Yeah, that's how I felt. I thought that I was going insane. And that is terrifying. You can see it now. You can feel it coming off me, right? There's a very real sense of fear at that point that I'm lost forever. And so it was very intense, but remediable over time. And it did take time, but there was a point where I did try to go into work after the break, and Vicky, who's our ops director, and a great support to me over the years, and friend also, it's that classic thing of she just asked me if I was okay. And I was no. And I started trying to explain it to her, and she was Mike, you have to go home, now. And so I did do that. I went home and then it got worse a little bit. And my wife, Benita, was like, there was a point where like I couldn't talk or do, I was just, it's hard to describe. I'm going to tell you though, what it looked like, I guess, was just me sort of like hysterically crying, covering my face and like sat
so
in
this
the corner.
way that's what it
Physically looked like.
Yeah, yes. Physically looked like.
So she was like, fuck,
yes.
what am I going to do about this?
Yeah.
Like he can't even fucking go outside. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
And so she called my parents. Is this too much? Are we
no,
all right?
No, yeah.
So my parents came round and they were like, the three of them worked to like stop me from going to work. And so what we did was we managed a conversation at that point about like the main concerns that I was having, which were to do with various things that just, it seems so insanely ridiculous now that I was really fixated on.
Yeah, but so I've got obsessive, like I've got a seriously addictive personality.
Right, okay.
So I can ruminate on something like this. It's not a big thing at all, but I'll ruminate on it for like, to the point it is a bit sort of, I've maybe not to the same degree or same texture as what you had, but I've definitely had those, you know, my life is sadly like punctuated with occasionally these big blotches of fucking anxiety, and I'm just like,
sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, but it is. It's just like, it is what it is. I think if you've got a brain that's sharp, like they're like not sharp, but like always thinking, it's just comes with the MO, mate, unfortunately. But yeah, what you're describing there, one thing I wanted to ask you is when you've got that addictive, or like not necessarily addictive, but like when you're like, I have to be at work, otherwise my ship's gonna sink. So you got that on one side,
which by the way isn't true.
I know, but it's important to say. In your head, so with this, I can't take time off.
No,
I feel sick if I take time off. Which I'm asking this, but it's like I need to. Yeah. And also, what I think you said there is like I could be on a beach in Barbados, right? But my brain is still worrying about this. You could put me in and that's one thing I'm trying to work through is like how you.
So, but that's where I was. Yeah. But I've let go of that.
So how? That's not like this.
Well, so one of the ways is having a breakdown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't recommend. But like certainly is a way to rewire yourself because it forces you to make a change.